Growing up in the Caribbean, have you ever been told,
when you're going with that broken English, you need to talk properly for me, please, okay?
well, this sentiment is as old as colonialism itself. And I am here to say in big, our English is not broken. It's not improper and it's not bad. It's just unique. Let me explain. Language in the Caribbean developed directly in connection to the social pyramid. A big part of the colonial agenda was to disempower the labor force as much as possible. This means to deprive us of an identity and convince us that we are inferior so that we'd aspire to be more European. And of course, if we want to be more like them, it's easier for them to control us, right? So part of the broken English narrative is the myth that our ancestors weren't intelligent enough to grasp standard English, so they had to simplify it. Which simply doesn't make sense because first of all, we came here speaking our own languages which were often more complex or just as complex as standard English. In any case, that totally discredits the way that dialects are created. Now, how are they created? Well, you had many languages existed in the same space where people needed to find common ways to communicate. The process of finding a workable language in this space is probably just as difficult or even more difficult than just learning English. What we end up with is a Creole language. This is defined as one which is a result of contact between the language of a colonizing people and the languages of a colonized people. It has its own rules, structures, grammar, and patterns just like any other language. Therefore, it's only bad grammar by a standard English measuring stick. But it's not trying to be standard English though, it's a dialect of its own. So for instance, if you say,
I am wearing no skirt, it's dance like going and dance.
Alright, Miss Ma'am.
Tanti will call it
Bad grammar.
But remember, our Creole has multiple influences. So in standard English, two negatives make a positive. So it's incorrect to say I'm not wearing no skirt because that means I am wearing a skirt. But in Spanish, they sometimes have double negatives. So if you say, Nunca le he dicho a nadie mis secretos, it translates to, I never told nobody my secrets. But it actually comes in English as the same as, I never told anybody my secrets. Also,
It's dance like going and dance.
can be linked to West African sentence structures. Now remember, these languages were formed a long time ago, so our Creole English was influenced by Standard English then, which is not the same as Standard English now. So the Y in words like skirt, car, garden actually used to mark smooth and elegant conversation of London and can also be found in Ghanaian Twi. Similarly, to say wearing instead of wearing can also be traced to the English and is still common in some British dialects today. Now, we understand what our parents and grandparents were trying to do, Remember the social pyramid? Well, I mean, who doesn't want to be as close to the top as possible? They were trying to make sure that we could have a good command of the language that's most respected in society. That's where code switching comes in, which allows you the flexibility to be more expressive and more articulate in more contexts and to more people without distancing yourself from your heritage. Being multilingual is a flex, so don't afraid to talk your talk. It ain't broke, so it don't need fixing. So like this video if you knew that, comment if you didn't, and share it either way. That's that on that. Crick crack, monkey break is back on a piece of camera.